Hey guys, welcome to our daily encounter. As we're going through and looking at the story of Saul and his, journey to the throne, we see that his journey to the throne is a bit progressive. It's not like Samuel just says, okay, he's the king, and then boom, Saul's just automatically made king. We see him being privately anointed in chapter 10. We also see him being publicly proclaimed in chapter 10. But today in our reading, we're going to see him also being proven by this battle that he has against Nahash the Ammonite. When chapter 10 closes, you see that there's still some people who are in doubt. You know, the majority of the people said, long live the king. But when you get to the end of the chapter, it says certain worthless men said, how can this one deliver us? And so there's a little bit of doubt with Saul. Even though he looked apart, even though he was head and shoulders above everybody else, literally, some people had doubts. Well, in our reading today, in this battle against Nahash the Ammonite, he's really going to have a chance, an opportunity to prove himself. And prove himself he does. This guy Nahash was giving the people at Jabesh a hard time, and they wanted to make a covenant with him. He said, I'll make a covenant with you if you gouge out your right eye. And they're like, give us some time to think about it. So they give it Saul. Saul sends out these pieces of oxen to the 12 tribes of Israel. Keep in mind that this happens at Gibeah. And you might remember when this has happened before at Gibeah, except for it wasn't with an oxen, it was with a concubine. They sent her out. So apparently this is still on Saul's mind, and this is the way he rallies the troops. And everyone comes to him, and they, of course, win the battle. And after this victory, then pretty much everyone accepts him. And matter of fact, in verse 12, it says, then the people said to Samuel, who is he that said, shall Saul reign over us? Bring them in that we may put them to death. So the people are now pretty certain that Saul's the guy. Saul's going to be our king. And so as we relate these stories to our experience with Christ, it kind of can be in a progressive way as well. We already know that Christ is anointed. He was anointed by God. That's what Christ means. It means anointed one. In the Greek, in the Hebrew, it's Messiah, which means anointed one. But Christ was the anointed one. He was anointed by the Holy Spirit. And he was sent out by God to do the work of the Lord. And he was proclaimed king by God and confirmed as the King of Israel, also as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And this was done in a very public way. Remember, even on the cross, they had hanging over his head the sign that said King of the Jews, in a place where everyone could walk by, much to the consternation of the Jews. They didn't like that sign, but Pilate said, no, we're going to keep it there. But then also he was publicly proclaimed as the apostles went out to the ends of the earth and began to proclaim the gospel and speak about the resurrected Christ. But you know when Christ is proven? It's very similar to Saul's story here. You know when Christ is proven as king? When we accept him in our lives and we allow him to win our battles. When we turn our lives over to him, submit to him in obedience and love and devotion, and then we just watch him work. We see him do mighty works in our lives and give us great victory as we work in cooperation with him and in obedience to him. And we see how our lives are changed, how transformation takes place, sometimes in a very abrupt way, in a very sure way, and sometimes in a very progressive way and over a period of time. But nonetheless, transformation comes. We see how Christ has changed our lives. We've seen how the rule of Christ does bring victory. We see how the love of Christ causes us to be more than conquerors, as Romans chapter 8 talks about. And Christ is proven as king. And now we proclaim him as king, not because we've heard it from others, not just because we've been told he's the anointed one, not just because the apostles proclaimed him as king, but because we have witnessed it ourselves. We know because we have experienced the power of Christ in our lives. And so our encouragement, I suppose, from from this is to, submit our lives to the Lord. Commit our battles over to Him. We know that our battles are spiritual in nature. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the spiritual forces of darkness in the heavenly places, as Ephesians chapter 6 teaches us. And so we need Christ, the King, to fight our battles for us, with us, so that we can overcome the spiritual enemies that come up against us, and to have the victory in the end. And as we witness that, and as we experience that, we will see Christ manifested as our King. So let's do that today. Let's submit to Christ, give our lives over to Him, and experience His power, His authority over our lives. So with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.